Hello and welcome to another Mr. Smith History, and this time we're going to be looking at law enforcement in early modern England, so it should be really interesting. So there was a huge increase in the size of populations in towns, and this played a really important factor in the role of law enforcement and the changes that came with law enforcement. Traditional methods such as hue and cry, like these little fellas running along here, look, became less effective, and more organised systems were needed to be put in place by town authorities and local communities. And another issue we've got is that the role of the church, which was very powerful up until now, their influence within the justice system decreases considerably. Mr. Smith, I hear you say, why don't you start off with the changes in the role of the church? Okay, I will. So, throughout the Middle Ages, the church had offered alternatives to the justice system. So you've got things you recall from previous videos like the benefit of the clergy and sanctuary. And what happened was, in the early modern period, we see a change in the justice system, and it becomes far more secular. So that means people are becoming relying on religion less to solve these problems, and as a result the church itself becomes less important in society. Okay, so let's have a look at benefit of the clergy. So if you remember of the clergy, you had the privilege of being tried by a church court for certain crimes. Now, so this little guy's coming along here he is, and he's trying to claim benefit of the clergy. But what he doesn't realise is Henry VII now only allows benefit of the clergy once, and people who were branded to show they had received the privilege. Then up pops Edward VI, and he makes more serious crimes such as murder exempt from benefit of the clergy. And then from 1576, church courts weren't allowed to try criminal acts anymore. So anyone, and that included clerics, members of the church, now had to be tried in secular courts like everybody else. People could still claim benefit of the clergy and receive more lenient sentences though. And similar restrictions were brought in terms of sanctuary. Henry VIII stopped exile abroad for those claiming sanctuary, so you couldn't run abroad anymore. It wasn't an option, and instead they had to keep to designated sanctuaries in England. And then in 1623, James I here abolished sanctuary altogether. The growth of populations and the growth of towns meant that there were new roles opening up in terms of law enforcement, one of which was this guy, and he was the Watchman. He would work at night, so he would always carry a lamp. He would have a bell that he would carry to alert people. I hope you're enjoying these new special effects, the way it's zooming there. All male householders were expected to volunteer, and the role was unpaid, so you didn't get any paid anything for it. And as I said, they patrol the streets at night, usually between 10 p.m. and dawn. These were overseen by someone called the town constable. So town constables were employed by the authorities in the town. They were respected members of the community, and I don't know who that good looking bloke is. They had the power to arrest suspects and take them to the justice of the peace. They were in charge of the watchmen in their area, and they helped with the town's administration. So quickly then a recap on continuity and change from the medieval period to the early modern. So continuity, you've got some version of the hue and cry still exists, and of course there's still no national police force, but we've got changes in the introduction of the role of the town's watchmen and the constables, and of course a reduction in the role of the church. So that's about that. We're going to be, next video we'll be looking at law enforcement in the 17th to the 19th centuries, how industrialisation affects it, etc., and the introduction of the Bow Street Runners. Ooh. See you then.